So 2001, it was changed. Now, you've been on both sides of the fence. What has actually happened in the ensuing 8 years?
Good morning, Chris. Thank you very much. I think the code was initially, as you said, published in 2001. The code's main purpose was to promote the key aspects of promoting equal opportunity and fairness in the workplace for disabled people. The code covers a number of aspects, including the definition of disability, reasonable accommodation, avoiding unfair discrimination, confidentiality and disclosure, but also employment equity planning. The main reason or the purpose for the code is really to be a guide. And it's a guide to assist employers to develop their own policies on disability strategy and also own disability programs in order to enhance the opportunities for disabled people in the workplace. So really it's an involving document. So it's not a stable document, and each and every employer needs to take the responsibility and expand on that and to provide more and more opportunities for disabled people.
You've been on both sides of the fence as an employer and an employee. What are companies doing, if anything?
Companies have really taken interest, and they've also made a number of strides in order to achieve better opportunities for disabled people. However, there are a number of challenges. I think just from an environmental point of view, accessibility point of view, there are challenges that not only employers have got control over. So we're looking at a very holistic approach towards providing more opportunities for disabled people. Also, at the same time, there's a reality of that a number of disabled people, and up to 70% of disabled people, need to have further education and training in order to enhance the chances for gainful employment. So the challenges are there, but I think there's been a number of good contributions made towards that.
Jean-Francois Mercier, our guest host, I'll bring you in here. What is Anton's talking about? It's laudable. We're talking about skills. We're talking about investment in people. We're talking about companies adapting to the modern world. But all of this is costs. All of this is money in these difficult times. How do you think companies are viewing this?
Well, you know, companies generally try to cut costs in all ways. So when you add a piece of legislation which potentially increases the upfront costs, there will be probably some resistance. At the end of the day, you know, the major problem in this country is not the cost environment in which companies operate, at least not the costs related to making it feasible for every type of employee to work in the workplace. It is more a skills issue, and companies cannot afford to ignore potential skills. They cannot afford to leave employees with potential talent outside of the workforce. So the initial cost will always be offset by some return, medium to long term.
But I understand, Anton, that there are fewer disabled people employed now in 2009 than there were in 2001 when these well-meaning codes of good practice were brought in.
That's true. I think the recent report published by the Department of Labour in terms of employment equity indicated that there's been a decline in the number of formerly employed disabled people in the working environment. It's from a 1% to a 0.77%. So it indicates that there's some challenges that needs to be faced, and the companies should start focusing on the ability of disabled employees, because if they are able to enhance the abilities of the disabled employees can contribute towards the economy. At the same time, it will create a medium to long-term savings, specifically in terms of the public social security, as well as savings in terms of the occupational insurance benefit schemes that are available.
If those are the benefits, why aren't more companies doing it?
I think there's challenges, as I mentioned earlier, that companies need to face and that they have to actually actively approach. And it's also the responsibility of independent organizations to create a bigger awareness and also assist employers in how to make the environment more friendly towards that, and also to change the perception of companies just to look at the disability of an employee and rather look at the ability. So it's really, there needs to be a mindset change, And the same time, when you might have a disability and you might have incurred a loss of something, you either have been lost a physical function or sensory or hearing, but at the same time, that same individual is able to actually expand on other abilities, which is actually will be to the benefit to companies. And if companies are able to actually enhance those abilities that the disabled employees have developed over time, it will actually be to their own benefit.
So I hate to sound cynical, but I'm sure at this particular time a lot of companies are going to have this issue with climate change and a lot of other issues at the bottom of the agenda, I'm afraid. What do you think?
I think that's true. I think one look at it critically. There has been a recent change at the Department of Labour employing a new Director General, and maybe we can expect a bit of more stricter scrutiny of the practices by employers, and we need to watch the space.
And very, very briefly, what do you think the chances are of more scrutiny and clamping down on firms over this issue?
No, I think over time they will probably have more scrutiny, but it does take time. You know, a lot of the problems with legislation in South Africa is the capacity to implement it, the capacity to monitor its implementation. And generally, there's always a risk that when you put too much of a legislation, people go around it. I mean, labor inspection. We have a very militant labor movement, but at the same time, we do not have a very good compliance record with legislation, even in the workplace when it comes to labor issues. So obviously, some efforts are probably going to be made on that front as well.